Hey everybody, it's the flagship show. It's Sunday. We're ready to rock and roll here. Right before spring break, some people are coming in for spring break, some people are going out to spring break, whatever it is, but there's always enough time just to get together and learn from each other. Josh Tobar, principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD, Garland, USA, ready to take this time, the flagship show time, to learn from speakers, from authors, what they bring to the table. That way we could make it a little piece, bring it to ourselves, because you know what? I learned about our guest today from another podcaster, and you know what? He's right here, spreading the knowledge, spreading the wealth, making sure that we're a better version of ourselves. So, if you are from Alaska or Hawaii, from Maine, from Florida, or anywhere in the 48 middle, join us tonight. If you're on the rebroadcast, please like it and share it. That way, other people in Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, where you might be, can learn from our guest tonight. What do you think about that, Dean?
I think you left out Las Vegas, my friend, and we're going to find out why that's so important tonight. Hey, everybody, I'm Dean Packard. I am the proud principal of Charlton Elementary here in Massachusetts, in Charlton, Massachusetts, and one of the co-founders of Unlock the Middle. And Josh has done just an amazing job by my side over the last almost year now, for crying out loud. Been rocking and rolling, doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And you know what, Josh, you're absolutely right. Sunday night's a great night just for us to be able to reach out there and see what's happening around the country and find that new talent that just wants to share some great gems in order to make somebody else a little bit better. And we're not going to disappoint tonight at all. So, yeah, you're talking about spring break. I told you earlier, Josh, in our conversation, my son's down at Dominican Republic right now, just landed about 5 or 6 hours ago. I got my fingers crossed. He has a great trip down there, and I've never been. I heard it's a lot of fun, but we'll see how it all goes. I did open up his phone for him so he can have that freedom to call me anytime he needs, but I just can't hop that plane and get there that quickly.
Yeah, it's one of those parenting things. It doesn't matter how old they are, you still got to worry about them.
Well, even at the age of going to be 23, so I think he can handle the moment. I'm going to hope so, at least. Anyway, he was raised well, so one of those type of things.
And I got my 3-year-old, so I don't know. There's a big gap right there.
There's a gap right there. 20 years is a lot of life, so a lot of growing up. But hey, listen, Sunday night's not about us, Josh. So let's do this. I'm going to bring in our guest. Hold on one second. Brandarius Johnson, welcome to Unlock the Middle. It's great to have you here. Any friend of Fonz's is a friend of ours. There's no doubt about that. So great to have you here. How are you, my friend? And why don't you just tell a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how you've risen to where you are today in education?
First off, thank you for the opportunity. Happy Sunday. I'm looking forward to dialoguing with you all and getting to share my story and learn a little bit about you. From Las Vegas, Nevada, born and raised. And, to answer your question, I think, I know I've just barricaded myself and the likes of spreading awareness for mental health. I've made it my priority, and I've given it everything in me and plan to do so as long as I'm here on this earth.
I love that. And mental health right now is probably the single most important topic. You're talking about from a kid's lens, from a teacher lens, from people across the board. Our jobs today to help support students in their well-being from the mental side of things is so huge because you can't learn unless you're balanced. So I'm glad you're walking in those fields right now because they're vitally important for public education. There's no doubt about that.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. And I agree with you 100%. It's extremely important.
So tell us a little bit. Let's deep dive here. That was a great intro, but remember, you're talking to a first-year assistant principal in Iowa right now.
Okay.
You're talking to right now probably a seasoned administrator, 25 years, 30 years, who never has done a podcast before.
Okay.
And you provide a great service, and they're not knowledgeable of what you bring to the table, Brandarius. So let us know specifically what brought you. How did you get to this point? Why are you providing this healthcare process? Let us know. Let us know who you are.
Okay. So to speak to that, can go so many different directions, but just like how I would treat a school in a consultation who, maybe like my first or second interaction with a school, I would typically ask, what's going on your campus, right? Before I go in and say all the things that I can do, all the things that I bring, that's the most important. What is going on your campus? And anybody might say, for this purpose, you know what? My students are struggling mentally. My staff might be even experiencing some burnout. What could you do? And I would say, you know what? My number one goal is to help other people evolve, help schools increase their culture and their climate. So what I would be willing to do is come in and use, my products and my personal experience to bring light to the dark topics of mental health and everything that comes with it. Now, going back to what inspired my journey, or even just, a little bit about myself, as mentioned earlier, born and raised in Las Vegas, my number one goal was to play professional football. So that's what I spent, the better half of my life with aspirations to play professional football. The reason why I wanted to take care of my family. Now, from I would say elementary up to high school, I didn't understand the significance of education. It wasn't until college that I understood the student aspect that goes before athlete. All in all, I never really learned how to learn. I learned how to get by the education system, and that had an impact on my overall. I think it had an impact on my overall football career because I never learned scheme. And not being able to go to a 4-year school out of high school, I had to take the junior college route, which wasn't so bad. But looking back at it, every time you put on a uniform and suit up, you stand a chance of getting injured. And I was at Saddleback College for 3 years. If you're familiar with a junior college, you have 2 years to get recruited. So first year I gray shirted. I was about 180 pounds, 90 pounds coming out of high school, playing defensive end. So you can only imagine at the collegiate level, that wasn't going to happen for me. So I gray shirted, took, less than a full load of college courses, got acclimated to the speed of college football, and then, thought everything was going to be okay. Newsflash, I suffered my first injury like 3 months into that first season with an AC joint. I separated my AC joint. No big deal. Took 3 months from October till January, which was the start of spring ball, got myself ready. And then that day I tore my left meniscus. So, being in another state, I didn't have a vehicle. I didn't have medical insurance out there. So there were a lot of hurdles that stood in between myself and the procedure that I needed to get back on the field. Long story short, I tore my knee up in January. I didn't actually have surgery until July 5th. That also, because of my white blood cells were low. So, I had to do a bone marrow and, get tested for cancer, which was completely shocking and devastating because I'm 19 now. I'm in the best shape of my life. And here are all these obstacles. And I'm feeling the weight because I'm only here because I didn't take care of my education K through 12. So all these things I'm feeling about myself while I'm trying to get closer to my lifelong dream of playing ball. Well, at that time, I thought that injury would be the worst thing that I would experience. And I remember sitting outside the locker room just kind of dwelling. And my coach is like, "What's going on, Johnson?" And I said to him, "This is crazy." And he was like, "It's not crazy. Athletes get hurt every single day. What's crazy is it happened to you." And just in that moment, and the advice my coach gave me, I think that started the path of just being more resilient or being aware of what the word resilient meant. And from that point, I just looked at everything that was happening to me like I wasn't going to be the first person and I wouldn't be the last person. So everything that happened to me, I can utilize to help other people. Now, that was my second injury, but my first injury that required surgery. And moving forward about a year, I was back on the field, no cancer. I ended up playing only 7 minutes that first season. I wiped it off, came back my sophomore season, which would be, senior season at a community college. Game 5, I tore up my right knee. So I was so familiar with the process, I ended up having surgery game 4 and was back on the field by game 9 because I had already gone through it. And that right there started, a different energy in my life. I went from having 0 scholarship offers to like 20, 25 to 27 overnight. Granted, most of them were Division II NAIA schools and a couple Division I AA's, but it just showed the fact that, you can go from nothing to something in a blink. And it was the fact that I went through that injury and had the surgery and got back on the field with such a short amount of time. Coaches were like, "Yo, that's the type of attitude we need in our locker room." So my first 3 injuries, and I thought, wow, this is all happening to me. This is crazy. But in reality, it wasn't the injuries that put me on the path that I'm on now. football and everything else was kind of like a tester. And I know we don't have much time, so I'm giving kind of like a crash course of my life. But I eventually signed a scholarship to Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado, and that's where I kind of met, depression, or was able to acknowledge depression, not only personally but also for my first love. And I'll just speak to my own personal experience or struggle with it. As you all know, you're in education. When I signed that scholarship, I thought there was going to be a big change in my life, and it wasn't. It was enough money to take care of me and get me through school. It wasn't enough to take care of my family. So that kind of like that reality set in, and I was miles away from my home. But more importantly, I just remember feeling like, man, my coaches, were untruthful throughout the recruiting process. So everything that they told me wasn't exactly what came into fruition once I moved, and I'm in this new city, and I took this school and signed this scholarship without even taking a recruiting trip, just because I was already so burnt out with all the coaches saying the very same thing. I grew to be like discouraged, or I had extreme anxiety. And I remember my mom said this: B, your whole life, all you said was you wanted a scholarship to play football. You never identified a location. So now you have all these options and you don't want to pursue it. That's what I felt. And that moment and that lesson, now I'm able to communicate that to people from all over the place, all walks of life, regardless of what the category is. Not only is it important to have a goal, but have a specific goal and have a map. So those are things that I learned along the way. But going back into the depression, it was so real, and it was so hard to really understand what was going on, because here I am living in my dreams, accomplishing everything that I said I wanted to accomplish, and I'm on course to get to the NFL. Regardless that I was at a Division II, regardless that I went to a junior college, I was still just X amount of plays or X amount of days away from accomplishing a big dream. Well, it didn't quite happen like that. And there was a girl that I met when I was attending Saddleback College, and in June 27th of 2014, she died by suicide. And it was at that moment that everything in my life completely changed for me. And I said to myself, and I won't say it was crazy, but I think it was significant that this was going into the senior season of my college career, summer break. Most of my teammates went back home. Personally, I'm like, I'm staying here. This is my last summer. I'm giving it everything I got going into fall camp. And I remember, reading that text message that, she was gone. I just remember being by myself in my house, and I just started doing push-ups. And, I looked to my left, to my right, in front of me and behind me. Even though I knew I was alone, it was just something I did. And my concept, the philosophy that I came up with was every day is day one, because I knew that yesterday was gone and I couldn't change what already happened. And I wasn't sure if there was going to be a tomorrow with the way that I felt. And in that moment, I said to myself, like, every day is day one ambition. And it just lit a flame in me that I would treat every day as the only day I have to do everything that I aspire to do. And I just started using the philosophy, and just about a decade later, there's people that I've attracted and inspired and helped from all over the world just by being resilient and transparent, and creating a place where we can be vulnerable and sharing my story and welcoming other people to share their story. And I just think it's, like you said earlier, it's important that we create spaces like this. And I think back, I don't know where I would be in my life if this hadn't have happened. I think it's safe to say that I probably dealt with depression and anxiety since I was a kid, and I was able to identify it when I went through this. And then speaking about it, so many other people are able to identify it, like, I felt like that. Man, you know what? This is exactly what I was thinking. So that's why I kept doing it day in and day out. And by the grace of God, I built a brand and an organization that represents hope, that represents purpose, that represents faith, consistency, resilience. And I've had the opportunity to engage people from all over the world. I've had the opportunity to speak to students specifically. That's my passion. That's my sweet spot, ages, I would say like 12 to 18, because that's where I spent most of my, young professional working career and youth corrections. But now I'm finding that I'm engaging students as young as kindergarten and people as old enough to be my grandparents. And what I've realized is that most people are experiencing things that they don't talk about. But if you provide them with the opportunity, that promotes that vulnerability, that promotes that transparency. And to take it even further than just mental health awareness and touching on student development, I'm sure both of you have spent many years in the classroom, and you can look at a kid who's struggling to read and and how they act if you ask them to read in class. This is what I've experienced when talking to people about things that we go through. They're more shy, they're more timid, they're more resistant. But I learned that in the correctional facility, a lot of my kids who were displaying disruptive behavior were more so just embarrassed because they didn't know how to say, "Hey, sir, I don't know how to read. Hey, sir, I can't do that problem on the board." So I took, a step back from this whole, industry as a whole, and in the correctional settings, depending on how you're being trained, we had three principles: ask, tell, and make. So we had to greet our kids in that manner. If we ask you to do something, you don't do it. We tell you, and then if you don't do that, then we make it. When I took a step back and realized I have a rapport with this kid, he's comfortable enough to tell me what he's struggling with. I can no longer see him from the perspective of ask, tell, and make. I need to be able to meet him where he's at and make him comfortable enough with me. And that's when I started making my greatest change. There's no longer a power struggle. It's more so, hey, I'm just like you. You are just like me. How can we come together and work? And I started realizing, you know what? This is beyond youth corrections. This is beyond mental health. This is everybody and everything, everywhere we are. And I thought to myself that communication is huge. Well, what happens if you're not able to communicate effectively? So, I was a bachelor level student, but I feel like I've spent the last 8 to 10 years doing my own, dissertation, learning how to cooperate, collaborate, learning how to communicate with people, and number one, learning how to gain the trust to be able to encourage people to be better for themselves. And I think that's the greatest thing that I'm doing. And I reflected on myself this week that it was my personal pain and passion that started this, but it's the pain of the world and my empathy that keeps me going.
I love the roadmap that you're creating for yourself. And the stories that you just said were so genuine and they're authentic. And I'll tell you what, they drive you to the next level. And you're hitting on so many buzzwords that Josh and I always talk about. I got a question for you, and I'm just listening here attentively. When did you begin to learn to learn? Okay. When in your journey, was it in middle school? Was it in high school? Was it in junior college? When did your mind switch from being that athlete that you had that roadmap, you were going, you knew you had the athletic skill, but when did you say, I now have to learn? And when did that switch take place?
Yeah. So that question gives me the chills because I think it's like two parts of it. The first part, which I shared on the last podcast, I had someone greet me, when I was at my 4-year school. They said, you must be here to play football. And it was in that moment that I felt kind of bad. I'm like, I'm more than just an athlete. I'm more than a body. Like, I have a mind. However, it clicked for me, but I also had a pressure because I was on an academic scholarship. So I knew I had to be better or be consistent to keep what I had. But as far as like when I learned how to learn, I think that happened, after suicide. That happened maybe years later. And that was 2014 when that happened. I think in the past 2 or 3 years is when I really learned how to learn, because I realized and I'll share, I do have a couple books, but on the cover of this, I put no surgery for depression. And that was because I wanted to speak to the world that regardless of the credential you carry, whether I have it or not in this mental health space, you can't just fix this. But I knew if I wasn't going to go to school to finish my master's, then I had to educate myself. And this is when I learned how to learn. The biggest thing was I'm passionate about mental health. I'm passionate about going into, the worst communities and dealing with people who have, less resources to show them that they have everything that they need to be successful. And I just realized I've been building this roadmap, and maybe I didn't know the correct terminology of everything that I was doing, but it was just like working with kids in the youth correctional facility who might be 15 years old, and we sitting in a CFT or a child and family team meeting, and we're asking them, what are you going to do that's different when you go back home? But I knew for some of these kids, they were going back to a situation that was going to be toxic. And I would tell them then, listen, if you free yourself in your mind, your circumstances only a limit. You're 15 now, but if you think about what life is going to be like at 18 and you unlock the barriers now, you set yourself free. So that's kind of what I'm doing now with encouragement, personal development, is being able to talk to somebody where they are and see them and encourage them to see themselves where they aspire to be. And I think right there, it creates the freedom.
I got another thought.
Mhm.
And I just want to interject, and I apologize for interrupting you. So, for all those athletes out there who are blessed with the abilities that you have, how did you beat public school? How did you? And again, and I know this is a little off-rail conversation, but I
Yeah,
think it's important for those athletes out there to hear this because you
yeah,
know what? You eventually the rubber hits the road. It just
right,
does, and you're going to be held accountable to learn.
right.
So, how did you beat public school to be able to get yourself still in that trajectory? Tell
You
me.
know, I think if you think about
And
you
I
always
get meeting people where they're at. We talk that all the
yeah,
time. That's great teacher talk. You know,
yeah,
universal design for learning. Meet students where they're at.
there you
I
are.
want to know you. How
Yeah.
did you get through school?
You know, it's funny. I laugh about it because my mom said once, I have three sisters and they're all, really intelligent, took advanced classes. My mom made a comment when she said, yeah, my daughters would be somewhere doing their homework and Brand would be somewhere trying to make his homework do itself. So I was always an innovative thinker. And I think now I just maybe didn't know my learning styles, but how I got by was I knew I had to have a certain grade point average to play football. And to be honest, there was a year I missed the mark. I was ineligible coming out of my freshman year into my sophomore year because I had no self-control, no discipline. And I was very, very impulsive and I would horseplay too much. So I got in a couple fights. It landed me on the ineligible list. And that what I felt was like never again. And I had a counselor, that said to me in our meeting when I was crying, he said, you weren't crying when you were getting in trouble, so don't cry now. And
Oh,
that advice changed me forever. And it didn't make me perfect. However, it made me accountable for all of my actions. And that's something that I've always been able to be and stand on. Like in all of my mistakes, I own them. Like I did that. And for the athletes now, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm actually in a process of developing a program just for student athletes, but in reality, all students. But the concept is to raise the bar, not set the bar, but raise the bar in your field of choice or your sport of choice on campus, in the classroom, and in the community. And reason being, with NIL and social media, I think it's easy for young people to get lost. But I'm also telling them these can be vehicles for you. There's kids that are signing scholarships and making money, more than their parents are making just by playing a sport. So why not start to utilize your mind? And I try to present it to them in a place where even the ones that say school is boring, I get that. You're going to have to do a lot of things in your life that are boring. But if you plan on living this life and playing this sport and going to the highest place with it, I need you to be able to read that contract that you're going to sign. I need you to be able to understand why you're going to buy this property opposed to this property, why you're going to buy this car and not that car. So you need to be able to exercise your mind and think for yourself. And even, as an athlete, going back to the everyday is day one concept, you score a touchdown, that's cool. Short-term memory, get ready to play the next play. You get beat on the play, it's okay. Get back to the ball with a fresh mind, because if you stuck on what happened last play, you're going to get beat on the next play. So it's all about just being mindful and being aware. And I tell a lot of students, any chance I get, because we all hear it. Oh, I don't have to do math. I don't need it in real life. And I'm like, here's the news flash. Math is all about solving what? And they'll say problems. Exactly. So whether you use this same platform or this same problem solution, you're going to have to solve problems for the remainder of your life, and probably going to have a problem every single day from here on out. The severity may change. So I just try to present them with a perspective where they can step away from what they feel and the capacity of their thinking to see it at another level. And I make it fun. Just this last week, I did some subbing, and I realized, here in the school system, in the charter system, they have a period that's called when, and it means what I need. I realized every kid in this class is struggling with problems. So when I ask somebody to read, it's nice and quiet. So I'm like, you know what? I'm take this as an opportunity to ask, what are you afraid of? Being wrong. Hey, listen, this is exactly when you be wrong in the room where we are practicing right now. And you know what? You can go up with a partner, everybody else clap it up for them as they're walking to the board. Not only are we building their confidence, we're showing them that it's okay to get it wrong. It's not okay to not try. That also transitions into talking about the mental health stuff. It's okay to be hurt. What's not okay is to take it out on yourself or to take it out on other people. So, pushing all that to say, just that's how I really learned how to learn. And that's how I got through, my situation as a young student, because I was always able to communicate. And that saved me. And then speaking to the mentors, I had a coach that rode me. And, he's also in my book. I just remember looking out the window once in the classroom, and I seen him, and he, opened the door and asked the teacher if he could speak with me. And I just blew up. I'm like, why are you spying on me, coach? And he's like, I'm not spying on you. You have potential, and I'm going to push you. He said, as long as I'm talking to you, you have nothing to worry about. When I stop talking to you, that's when you should worry. It made it easy for me. I realized that all my teammates and all the responsibility my coach has, he makes it a priority to come and find me, to follow up with me. I have to appreciate that. And I have to pay it forward by doing what I'm doing now.
All great stuff right there. And again, the things you just hit on, it gives me a little bit of the chills, okay? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're responsible for as educational leaders or as teachers or anybody in public education, is to be able to find that way to help any child meet their best growth rate. So good stuff, really good stuff. Josh.
So Brandarius, I really like the way that you broke that down in a way that a second-year teacher in Nebraska can communicate with that student athlete in 8th grade and 7th grade, or maybe their freshman year. Because there's a mentality in 8th grade and 9th grade that they're bulletproof and they're going to reach the pros. So it's the way that you introduced that was fabulous. Thank you very much. And I know the Principal Cafel is on, parties on and off. That's a man you need to follow. And also another gentleman I met with him was Craig Boykin, who's been on the show before. And he writes about some of the stuff that you have addressed. So you're bringing something very good to the market, because you know what? Let me tell you, there's a lot of individuals that do not know how to address a student athlete who has all the God-given talent, but they don't focus on the academics. And I think you bring a lot to that table to educate us, even though we might be teaching for 5 to 10 years. That's a great lesson because you walk those shoes. Make sense?
I appreciate that.
So talk to me. Talk to us, everybody out there. Talk to the people in Hawaii. Talk to the people in Florida. Tell them why you wanted to write this book.
Yeah. So the book, Mental Hope, there's no surgery for depression. I ended up running 100 miles in 2020 and 10 days for mental health awareness and suicide prevention. And, we engaged about 40,000 people from all over the world. And I did this. It was kind of like an impulsive thing, because I felt like in a lot of cases, suicide is very impulsive. And, I was an avid runner. I fell in love with running, when I was in Colorado and going through some of my own issues. I just woke up one morning and I took off running around this mountain town, and I said I wasn't going to stop running till my mind cleared. And I ended up running 5 miles. I ran around the whole city of Durango. And from that moment, running became like a metaphor for my life. And it just gave me time to think. And the philosophy that hit me, or the concept, was when people see you running, they assume you're trying to get away from something. And I was like, you know what? Running provides me with the space to work through and get through things. So I've done it. And in 2020, some said, you know what, B, got to run 100 miles. And I made it up in my mind that I was going to do it. And, Howell, that was my first love that died by suicide. Her birthday is September 11th. And I remember, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start this run then. And I did it. And 40,000 people from all over the place engaged. And so many people reached out to me on my story. And my team was just like, there's no way you can have all these conversations. So you need to write the book. And I sat down, and in about 30 days, I completed my book. It was almost like a camp. Realistically, we wanted to complete it in 10 days, like the run. But, I had so many different emotions that started to come out when I was writing the book, that little voice. And it took me 30 days, which, we were still extremely proud about that. And my book is, I feel like, to be my first project like this, it's a really well written product. And after we wrote the book, we were still in the pandemic, so I didn't really get to release the book. And long story short, there was a lady that I was introduced to by a mentor and colleague of mine who's here, and his name is Sheldon Jacobs. He's a doctor. He's on the board of NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. He referred me to one of his friends, Dr. Ali, who's a psychologist. Well, I have a screen print company, and I did a logo for her and some T-shirts, and just in conversation, she's like, you speak well. And I was like, well, really, realistically, I'm an author and speaker. So I told her that short story. Lo and behold, she's like, well, I'm in mental health. And I ended up connecting with her. And after she was talking to me about, she asked me if she can hire me. And she was like, how much are you? Just to write like 30-second skits, which, brings me to my attention, the videos that I've released on social media. So I'm just like, hold on, what do you mean, can you afford me? And I just told her, like, if you just read my book and pull out the excerpts, I'll write as many skits as you want. So when she read my book, she called me like, hey, I want to share your book with someone if you're comfortable. I'm like, cool. And it happened to be her friend, Miss Linda Harris, who's now my program director. She was a counselor for 25 plus years here in Las Vegas. So she read the book and she called me and she was just like, what are your intentions? And then she was like, you don't know what you have here. And I'm like, yes, I do. It's my life story. But she was like, no, realistically, you don't know what you have here. You represent every kid that I've sat across from the last 25 years. What are your intentions? And I'm like, well, I just want to speak. I just want to go into schools and, inspire students. She's like, there's no way you can be everywhere that you're needed. So I'm like, okay. Her and my brand strategist, had told me that for a little while, but it didn't really set in. But being, in this pandemic and not really able to release the book, I started thinking, like, you know what? I want to have a program. So her and I came together and we wrote together a 12-week SEL program. And it's a student study guide called Be the Hope. And Be the Hope is a personal and global call to action. For me, hope means to help other people evolve. So that's how the book and the workbook came about. And, these two products combined with this shirt that says the world wouldn't spin the same without you, we've been able to engage schools and students and staff from all walks of life on a premise of help, resilience, hope, perseverance, love, kindness, like anything that can be utilized in the school or in the community, we feel that we can offer with our workshops, with our stories, and being able to come in and create that space. So that's how the books came about, and and everything else.
What have you found to be the biggest challenge or the removal of that obstacle that you went from where you didn't think you could go to being like, now I can go there and make a difference. Now that you're seeing that people are seeing that roadmap of your story that you wrote, and all of a sudden it's just the roads are opening for you. They're just opening. Talk about how that transition happened.
That's probably been the greatest uphill battle. And I mean, you all are familiar with schools, and I'll never badmouth the school or district or anybody because, I know there's a lot at stake. But my greatest challenge has been getting through and getting the approval to go and do what's needed. And I think that's the business part of it, which was my least focus because I'm like, I just want to speak. I just want to do the work. It's people around me that's saying, B, you got to put a package together. B, do you know there's people getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do what you're doing? B, what are your intentions? And it really hit when I was working, full time, and so many people was asking me to come to do what I was doing. This is before I had the books, but I had everything that I put in the book. So I would just show up, do what I'm doing, and then leave. I got letters from students and staff from over the last decade of, hey, thank you for what you did. Our kids learned so much, our staff learned so much. It really clicked when my team in the last year and a half said, B, you got to put together this package. And now, going to the schools where in Las Vegas, we have the 5th largest district in the nation here in Clark County School District, over 300 schools. The district sent out my book, workbook, and one of these shirts to every school counselor in the middle school and high school level. So we thought, all right, this is about to blow wide open. But what we've come to realize, the district is so big that it's almost a detriment that it's that big. So we started having meetings with individual schools. Then they say, you have to get your program approved. Well, there's departments that reached out to me that said they're here to vet me because they feel like my program could be a resource. And it's like so much going on with the district. There was like a lapse in communication. So we got so many schools saying, we have to get approved. I got the district saying you need, schools have autonomy. That's where the communication dropped. To where now, when I've had schools that say, B, we love your program. And the 2 most important questions to answer your questions that I was recently asked was, how much is the program and when can you start? And that's when I said, I got them. I know what to do now. And it was my will and desire to help and to be, this resource for the students and staff. That's what kept me going. And so it was like, I can identify an obstacle, but I can't identify an obstacle that would justify me stopping this pursuit. And, I knew that going into it, that, just early on in my journey, there were some people that made comments like, oh, you're young, what gives you the right to do this? So I already knew going into it, it was going to be a battle. And some of the battle could just be what I look like and the credentials I carry. And that's why I created Day One Ambition Printing. So I created a screen printing company where I can go into a school, and if they, struggle to purchase my program or bring me in as a speaker, then how about you just get, 30 to 40% of your school merchandise through me, and that'll subsidize the program. And schools bid on that. So I realized more than anything, I'm dealing with behaviors. It ain't no different than what I'm doing in the classroom. I even go into schools now with a different demeanor. Like, first, everybody that I greet, hey, the world wouldn't spin the same without you. Because I'll get people that'll say, oh, I'm just the office manager. No. You're not just the office manager. You're the office manager. And if you weren't here, it'd be chaos. So the world wouldn't spin the same without you. Oh, thank you so much. So, it's like just being authentic where I am, everywhere I am, and being able to encourage. And just by doing that and being that, doors have opened. I have about, I think, 15 schools here that I'm printing for. My team is expanding in that essence. And I'm able to even give coaches the freedom to express themselves through their team merchandise. That's what it's always been about, helping other people evolve, and specifically for the Be the Hope program, mental health, mental optimism, mental performance, and mental evaluation. So it's still hope, and it all starts with knowing what you want to say and being comfortable enough to say it. And it's working for me.
I'm smiling because I asked you the question a while ago, learning how to learn. And what you did is you just took me through the roadmap of your learning how to learn. And you look at your entrepreneurial thoughts and how you were able to problem solve and create a bigger net for yourself, not only through networking, but to use your mind to create different revenue avenues for you. Talk about that. That's where kids have to be thinking outside the box, thinking out of the now. And that's just beginning to grow, because I can hear it in your voice. And I kind of smile at that, because the biggest thing in education, I say this all the time, our number one resource are the people. Our people who are teaching kids. And if our people who are teaching kids get it, what you're trying to sell, guess what that does to school culture? It changes it exponentially. And all of a sudden, the world wouldn't be the same, it wouldn't spin the same without you. I'm looking at that show. You're right. It becomes a viral thing that people just kind of grasp onto. So good for you, man. I'm just smiling thinking of that, because it's a really great idea. And it's really centered at the number one most important thing in education, kids' well-being.
I appreciate that. And to speak to that transition, I don't know if you all are familiar with Nipsey Hussle, but his concept for his brand was the marathon continues. So when he was tragically killed, it hurt me so bad because I felt like that was the tangible example. Even though I never met him in my life, that was the most tangible example of somebody that was doing something similar to me. He spoke about encouraging the community, uplifting and pushing ownership and autonomy in business and self-education, self-preservation through his music. And I just realized I went through his Instagram once from the beginning and saw his early pictures, post to millions of dollars later and a whole team around him. And I said, wow, he's using the same software to promote and send out his merch. Only difference between him and I is he has a huge following. And I started watching so many podcasts. I've been watching speakers like Les Brown and guys like that for years. And they often talk about the struggle to get to where you are. And that made me realize, you know what? This is on my heart so heavy that if I don't do this, I'm in a worse place than if I'm pursuing it. And I had to silence all the voices around me and realize this mission, this calling that I have was given to me and everybody else might not see it. And this is something that I'm just now learning. Like you said, you can hear it in my voice. I'm just now stepping into these shoes at 31. I turned 31 on the 7th of March. And, a few years back, I said, I want to retire at 30. Now, my definition of retirement was not having to work, but not having to do anything that I didn't want to do and just stand dedicated to that. 7, 8 years ago, actually before that, because as an athlete, I was dedicated to the grind. Now I just have something that's a lot bigger than football. However, football was a vehicle that showed me how to get up and shake it off. You get your bell rung, my helmet's still on, my mouthpiece still in, okay, I'm ready to rock. So it was like there was nothing life could really throw at me that could stop me. However, I've been through some lows, and in those moments, I just knew as long as I can breathe, as long as I can move, then I can overcome. And I think, the role that I'm in where when things started changing around me, it brought another anxiety. Like I have my whole vehicle wrapped with the world won't spin the same without you and all my brand stuff. So I started getting more attention, but it was more of a detriment. It made me more discouraged because I seen myself as just this regular person, but so many people were inspired just to be in my presence. And I really struggled with this. And I started studying pastors, like TD Jakes or even some of the biggest speakers we know. And I tried to figure out who these people are when they get off stage. That was where I was struggling. I'm like, I don't really know how to just be Brandarius. Everywhere I go, I think I have to encourage because there were people who held me in this box. If I expressed a mental breakdown or anything close to a crisis, you're supposed to be Mr. Mental Health. You wrote a book. You should have it figured out. And I struggled with that. But in the last 2 years of my life, I realized I'm separating myself from people. And what I've built, I cannot let anything, including myself, sabotage it. And, I just started getting up and day in and day out, being okay with cutting ties or setting boundaries with things that were detrimental for me. And even realizing with, being in the youth correctional facilities and background, I realized, not that those kids don't matter, but I'm like, what about all the kids out there who are in the public school system that we can reach before they get adjudicated? Started feeling these wheels turn to now I can go into a school and have students that may struggle a little bit, but they're not doing anything that can ruin their life yet. You know what? Hey, I can work with y'all. And it just, led me to be clear with what I say, be firm with what I say, but also be able to love and encourage. And I'm telling you, just in days of being at any school, I already create a culture and a presence where kids will come and find me, teachers will come and find me and just say, hey, thank you. I don't know what you're doing to our kids, but they're eating it up. And it just starts with a simple thing. Start my class and I say, eyes, everybody say up. That's my way of saying, you know what, I'm here. I need things to be controlled. If it gets too loud, when I say eyes, hey, tell me why I'm saying that. Mister, because we're too loud. Thank you. Let's try it again. but it also showed them like we're gonna have some standards and expectations. And most schools have a point system. After 2 or 3 redirects, something happens. So I tell my class, look, in the first 5 minutes of my class, I'm giving you all 3 redirects. So if I have to intervene at any point, now we go to another level of corrective action. But we don't have to go there, right? No, sir. Okay, so let's work. How's everybody doing? Did y'all get good sleep last night? Okay, cool. So now I know. Also, it's not like like growing up, I always heard you got to look at a person in the face or they don't respect you. I'm like, I have a lazy eye. So at times, like, I'm not going to look at you in your face. I mean, when I was a kid, now it doesn't bother me, but I'm like, that can't be true because I know the reason why I might not look at you. It has nothing to do with respect. And it goes back to that correctional mindset where it's my way or the highway. Like, we can't be that anymore. We can still be firm and fair, but we can be loving and compassionate. So now when I see kids with their head down, it ain't like a big thing. Hey, how you doing? Did you sleep last night? Okay, you a little tired? Okay, that's cool. Just try to listen as much as you can. It ain't a big deal. That kid may have not got no sleep last night. He may have went through something. We don't know. And I just try to always take that time to go above and beyond. And when kids see that, I ask them, do I have permission to push you? And in times where, kids will test boundaries, I'll ask them, hey, do you all want me to work with you or work for you? And I'm like, if you don't know what I mean by that, now is the time for you to ask. And I'll have somebody ask, what does it mean? Thank you for asking. If I'm working with you, that means I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to have a lot more leniency for what you're doing if I see you trying. If you're telling me you just want me to work for you, I expect you to do everything you're supposed to because now I'm just creating an observation. You did this at this time. You were given your assignment with ample amount of time at this time. If you completed it or not, that's on you. And oftentimes, most of them say, hey, mister, will you work with this? Thank you. Now you're giving me the permission to push you and keep you on task. And it just works. I don't have to be mean. I'm a big guy. And even that, dang, sure, you got the guns. Yeah, make sure you do your push-ups every night and every morning. Make sure you get your rest. Make sure you eat right. Make sure you stay hydrated. Do everything you can to put yourself in the best position to be the best student. Like, that's all that I'm doing.
I'm just going to interrupt one more time before I send this to Josh. I'm smiling because I got a 27-year-old daughter who was a college athlete, invented something, has a cleaning business, did 25-30 million in sales and commercial real estate this year. She's shooting for 40 million this year. She's a rock star. And what I see it in the similarities between the two of your voices, there's no rest. You never settle. You keep digging. You keep wanting more to do more for somebody else. And that's the next chapter in life. And I'm going to hook you up with her. I want you to meet her, and I'm going to send you a message with her connection on Facebook or something of that nature. I think you'll enjoy what she does because it really mirrors what you do. Josh.
I love you.
And hey, you know what? We went from a young man, an athlete, personal adversity, relationship adversity, athletic, ups and downs, business entrepreneur. I mean, I could keep on dissecting this frog, but we're not, because you know what? There is so much that you brought to the table within the last 48 minutes. You're a blessing to any school. Hey, administrator, start working on these POs for this guy, okay? Because you know what? The kids need to connect with him. A lot of times you don't connect with them. Because remember, if you don't connect with them, they will not content with you. So make sure that you find someone that can be that conduit between the school, that factory style mentality that we still have, with our current age student. If we don't find that correct conduit that brings the whole family together, the campus family together, then there's going to keep on going with TikTok challenges. You're still going to keep on doing with disrespecting. You disrespected me for not looking me in the eyes. That will continue if the kids will not find someone to connect with. And then the anarchy, then you're that little white dog chasing his tail. So this is a valuable individual that brings the experience, the look. Why? Because he's young, and kids connect with the young ones.
They do.
And most importantly, he has the ambition to promote that kid that's at risk, that has his hoodie on, that has the earbuds and his head down. He can know how to connect with him using Nipsey Hussle, all these other guys that I don't know who they are, but I've heard of them.
Come on, Nipsey Hussle. You don't know
right,
Nipsey,
that's your time. In honor of your
age, guy. Come on, man.
Your age, Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah,
But
that's where he got his name from.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Famous comedian. And so to us out there, he covered a lot. Show the book real quick, Brandarius. Show the book.
This is the book, Mental Hope. And on the back, the mental hustle continues.
So reach out to this guy. We'll be promoting him. I'm gonna make sure that I talk to Principal Cafela and Craig Boykin. They trust me. You're gonna be good when they talk to you and guide you, because that's what they do. But you know what, Dean? I think we had a great show today.
That was a great session.
And most importantly, don't forget, office hours this week, office hours, but we're going to have to change it because supposedly you guys in the New England area are going to get a bunch of snow or some whatever. So we're going to meet office hours on Wednesday, a 20-minute problem-solving show, 20-minute problem-solving show this coming Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Join us. Share this guy right here, the future rock star right there, that guy right there. We love that guy. Great job. Thank you for being on the show tonight, Brandarius. Appreciate you. Love you. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Hey, guys, once again, we appreciate you too as well. And out there, make sure you take care of those kids this week. They deserve the best version of you that you can bring to the table all the time. Have a great week, everyone. Brandarius, thank you so much. Josh, as always, peace out, brother. Guys, stay on for us for 1 minute. Have a great week.